if you're an entertainer, if you're playing for other people, you're an entertainer, and it's less important how you feel about yourself and how your audience is responding to what you're doing.
Right.
So how do you deal with that, you know, balancing that, what you feel in terms of the quality of your performance and the response that you get back from your audience? How do you not obsess over the little things?
Well, I guess I have 3 points. The first one's the quickest, and this is just like something that Jay taught me. I've been there, done that. Somebody comes up and said, "Man, you sounded incredible. Great job." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man. I kind of blew that last shout chorus, and I was really hanging on by a thread in the hall. I just couldn't hear myself. I was blowing too loud." It's just easier to say thank you. No matter what we feel, don't feel like you have to justify yourself, prove yourself to anybody, and it's just a polite thing to do. Somebody comes and tells you, "Great job," this or that. No matter how dog crappy you're feeling, just say thanks. The second point is kind of what you were saying about your martial arts experience. Something that I experienced a lot at UNT was, and I still to this day, you feel like, "Man, I'm riding so high, man, this is awesome. What's happening?" This is a really important thing, I think, for younger players to realize, myself is included. When we're playing music, right, the trumpet obviously has a physical aspect to it, the execution with embouchure and articulation, all this stuff, right? But there's also an aural concept. We hear our own sounds. We have to use, we're using this part of our body and this side of the brain and then this side of the brain and this part of our body when we're playing with other musicians. And I had a teacher tell me once, I was just getting really discouraged for a while. I mean, I was in a rut for maybe a few weeks. I couldn't figure out why. I just thought I all of a sudden just started getting worse. And my teacher said, "It's not that you're getting worse. Your ears are getting better." And I thought that was really profound. He was the only person in my life that's ever told me anything like that. Mike Steinell, another great teacher at North Texas who retired a couple of years ago. But his point was that, like, yeah, like if you think you're in like a fifth grade and let's say you just pick up the trumpet and you're going, ha, 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 hot cross buns, you're walking away going like, "Man, I killed it. This is awesome." And if you played that way now, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" Right? Well, why is that? Well, you've probably been exposed to good music and you know what good trumpet playing does sound like, but your ears have gotten better. I mean, I was in sixth grade band and the teacher would have the tuner out, right? And she'd point to you and you'd have to guess if you were sharp in tune or flat. I didn't have a clue. I almost didn't even know what that meant. I could hear that the pitch on the metronome, or tuner, excuse me, was different than what I was playing, but I didn't know if it was high, low, this. I didn't, now I can tell within a few cents if it's not quite right. And something I've experienced during COVID, I've been obsessing about my intonation because I'm hearing things now that I wasn't hearing even as recently as maybe a year or a year and a half ago. It's not like anything's like bizarrely out of tune, but it's those real finite differences that can make a big difference. So I've been playing with drones and all kinds of stuff, and some of the smaller horns I'm a little more uncomfortable with, like E flat and D trumpet, and just trying to get a little more centered on those horns. And that again is just part of like your ears are catching up to the rest of what you're doing. So just keep that in mind for whoever is listening, that if you feel like you're in a rut or just something's not happening, it might just be that your ears are getting even more attuned to what you're doing as a player. And so many guys, they forget that, you just think you hear what you hear, but you don't. I mean, the longer you do this, the more you hear things in a deeper way, in a more informed, seasoned way. And then my last point, I guess, is another thing that's been one of my goals during the pandemic, was that I wanted to become more consistent of a player. And my wife is pretty athletic, and I've watched her and her, we have a home gym downstairs, watching her and her routines and like her eating habits and this, that, and whatever, seeing the level of consistency she follows and the amount of success she has. Her days kind of go like this. You might have a day where you don't feel maybe the best ever, but it's not like, in the tank. And there are some days, like, especially when I was in college, and maybe it's because I was doing so much playing or I was just ignorant and didn't know any better. But I mean, literally some days it felt like this. And I hated that like I would always be terrified of like, okay, what if one of my bad days lands on a 1 o'clock concert? What am I
Uh-huh.
going to do? I'm not even going to be able to play the gig. And so one of my longtime goals forever has been to play, to get to a point in my playing to where if I'm having a bad day, only I know it. That's kind of my goal. And I finally feel like I'm getting there. And part of that has been consistency in the warm up, consistency in the way I execute playing, trying to be aware of maybe days I'm more tense than others, and just kind of focusing on the process, not obsessing about the process, but just really being aware of how I'm playing the trumpet. Because again, it's a pretty simple concept. You're blowing wind through a piece of plumbing. I mean, that's it. You know, it's not quantum physics or Jeff Bezos launching a rocket. I think it's way cooler than that, but
Yeah.
that's just, you know.
We don't have to wear the goofy suits, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, so I feel like now I'm finally getting there, and what I guess what I've come to appreciate, because I still have those days where maybe it wasn't the greatest ever. Well, Monday night, for example, I was playing at the National Jazz Workshop, and like the hall over there at that school is just awful. And everybody knows it. The teachers know it. It's like a brass quintet would sound amazing in there, and that's about it. And we had an 18-piece big band, and I fell into the rookie mistake of playing a little too loud to try to hear myself over the band. And I didn't fold or anything, but it kind of hurt towards the end a little bit. I started getting a little winded, and my core started bothering me. But the kids came up, and they were like mind blown hearing, some of them having never heard a big band live for the first time, you know, and they were like blown away. And you just, like, again, kind of my first point, you just smile and say thanks. You have to kind of get out. I guess what I was saying at the very beginning, separating your musicianship from your humanity. It almost doesn't bother me anymore if people make mistakes. And I'm not talking like, you know, destroying a good take on a record because you're not paying attention. But
Right.
like if somebody makes an error or comes in wrong or like whatever, nobody bats 1,000. Okay. And once you've accepted that, then again, that's where the humanity thing kind of takes over. And so when people come up and talk to me after gigs or say things about the blues, or you walk away and you're not feeling very good, I just try to take some joy in the fact of seeing how moved, especially like younger players who are excited about big band music. Like that's pretty cool. That's super cool. No matter how I played, that's pretty awesome. And they took the time out of their day to come in and see you play. And so my end goal, no matter how I play, good or bad, in my view, in my head, if they're walking out changed in some way, or maybe they had a bad day at work and they came in and now they're walking away happy, or maybe they had a loved one pass away and we just played a tune Monday night called Farewell. One of the guys wrote it in tribute to his father that passed away. You know, if they can relate to that story and they're walking out changed, then we as musicians have done our job.